Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast, way out there in Hawaii. Russ, good to have you joining again. Always here making that effort. And good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It is a nice, beautiful day out there. I like it. It gives me energy. And being able to see so many people here for the training early and on time, I especially appreciate that. I wanted to give a quick tip. It's a tip I given before, but as a thank you and a reminder to you that sometimes, especially today's topic, when we think about it, it's a little tough, and you go, how do you get through it? There's certain books out there that are just awesome books for us. And Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People is a really good one because habit number 1 is be proactive. And today I'm going to be talking about being proactive. But when I find myself struggling in business and there's challenges going around, what's going on in the federal government is a challenge to my business and those that I help. It's a really good book to give me level set guidance on what to do at the most basic level, like be proactive, begin with the end in mind. Like later this week, I'm going to be doing a training on how to plan for your 2026 success. Well, that's the end in mind that you're beginning with, right? And things like that. So I just want to say thank you to those of you showing up early and on time. I appreciate that. Let me know in the chat. You're already doing it, letting everybody know where you're coming from, like Fort Wayne, Indiana. Good to see you in here. But also let us know if you're open to connections. This is a really good time to be able to connect with others. I'm here. I'm going to do my training. I'm back. If you've been attending my other training, you know I've been offline for a while. I can actually go into that maybe a little bit later, a little different video. But basically, I broke my back in 10 different spots 3 weeks ago. So I've been offline for that, but I'm back now. But I'll be doing the training, right? And afterwards I'll come back and say hi and network, et cetera. But I want you to let others know that you're open to connection. We're talking today about what to do with the OSDBUs being canceled, et cetera. Well, that makes us afraid that there's no advocates out there for us. Well, a good advocate for us is anybody who's in our network. So grow your network always. And today's a great way to do it. We'll have over 100 people live. I have over 200 people who registered to attend. That means you can follow back up with them and say, sorry, I missed you, but maybe we'll connect. All right. Let's go ahead and get started in the training while you all are saying hi to each other. And I encourage that. And I love that. It's not about selling. It's about networking, right? So just reach out and try to understand people. Today, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the federal market, right? OSDBUs are being canceled. The Air Force, the most recent one that caught my attention that motivated me to come in and tell you, to do this training. But with these things that happen, and I'll explain what an OSDBU is if you don't fully know, but basically, the OSDBUs, some of these OSDBUs are being canceled. What can we do about it? And I really want you to understand that you control your future. And I'm going to talk about what you can do out there to control it. It can feel like small business is under attack. There's this great line that says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean no one's chasing you, right? And in here, it's the same thing, right? If you feel like small businesses are under attack, if you feel like your business is under attack, no one's saying that you're wrong, right? If you feel that way, you're correct. There is a level of the small businesses are being attacked. And I don't think that's the right thing for the government to be doing at the moment, because we small businesses grow up to become Booz Allen. We small businesses grow up to be Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin, right? And the Trump administration, the administration wants to grow the American supply base, the manufacturing base. And that's us. That's us small businesses, right? And so I think we need to sit there and take control of our own businesses out there, because we can't control what happens to us. There's that line that says you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your reaction. Right? So I can't choose to control, or I can't control in any way the decisions to close some of these OSDBU offices or some of these other decisions that are happening in the federal market, but I can decide what I'm going to do. I can decide what my reaction is going to be. And I can decide that my reaction is going to be positive for my business, for your business, right? We want to grow together. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to adapt early. And I put here, stop complaining. And I'm not trying to beat you up for complaining. Sometimes I complain about things, but complaining doesn't get us anything. Identifying a problem and then matching a solution to it, that gets us forward momentum. Complaining at best releases a little stress, right? Or a little pressure or something. And so go ahead and complain for a few minutes. I do that myself, right? But what I would submit is that the longer we complain, the longer we're playing into the people who really do not have the small business best interest at heart, do not have your interest at heart. And they want us to complain. They want us to fight among each other, talk about how bad all these different things that are happening. I remember for the longest time how much people would talk about category management and all these things. Oh, it's so horrible for small businesses. Well, all we did was spend a lot of time talking about how bad that was, but we weren't being proactive, right? We weren't deciding our future. And you can control your future. You can control your future and you can control your success. And that's what today's training is about. This is why I'm here today, is I want to help you think about the fact that, yes, there's some negative things going on, but there's a massive amount of positive things that you could put in place that begin to help your business grow. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to break it up into 4 sections for how to deal with all this stuff that's going on in the OSDBU offices, et cetera. It didn't just start with the OSDBUs, by the way. So I'm going to start backing us up 1 second and helping us understand where we're at in September after basically a 9-month administration set of activities, their priorities. And so it started with DOGE, which is pretty much kind of fading out, and we can talk about that in another training. But it started with DOGE and the death of DEI. So I want to talk about that and just help us remember the journey to where we're at. And then it went into where we're at now, and I'm talking about the OSDBUs and the Military Defense Department equivalent of OSDBU, which is Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. The equivalent of that is the Office of Small Business Programs for DoD. And so if you think about the Department of Air Force, that's what they don't call them OSDBUs, they call them OSBPs. And then I want to move into what we can kind of do about it. And so there's 2 sections I want to cover. First, small business professionals are still there. Even though OSDBUs are under attack, et cetera, small business professionals, and there's many of them, hundreds and hundreds of them, that are out there that we can talk to. And then the last thing I'm going to wrap up with is don't just talk with small business professionals, because really the only reason we talk to them is to get to the last group, which are federal buyers. And I want to just remind you who they are and how we can reach out to it. So that's what I'm going to cover down. If you like that and you like the idea that process is how we get to where we want to go, just put process rocks into the chat. Let me know you're tracking on what I'm teaching. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I am founder of Call Plan AI, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. When you follow process, you're going to have success. If you haven't done so already, make sure you definitely follow me on LinkedIn, and then connect and follow with others on LinkedIn. This is how we build a connection. I'm looking at one of our biggest and greatest small business professionals out there. Just went through the chat, Dave Waltz. It's great to see him in here as well. We get all sorts of people that come in from the buyer side, from the large prime side, and from small business, and from industry, right? From Apex accelerators, et cetera. We're all in here. That's your network, but it only works when you connect with them and reach out. And then make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. I've been a little bit off with my back, but I'll get back to it this week. I'll start writing articles again. But it is the largest government contracting newsletter out there dedicated to your success. And then last thing is tomorrow's training. Check it out. I already forgot what it is. Hold on a second. Getting seen by federal buyers. This is huge. I've been in talks with SBA to help them hopefully exceed all small business goals. And I'm hoping they work with us and we can move forward on it. But one of the things that just came back to me again, reinforced when I was talking to them and giving them data and evidence, is that 80% of small businesses are invisible to federal buyers. We can do something about it. Come tomorrow to the training and I will give you tactical tips on what to do. Okay, really quickly, I just want to kind of guide us to how we got to here. Is this journey, right? And so we're in a new administration. There's a massive difference between the previous administration, the Biden administration, Trump administration. This is our customer, by the way. This is who we choose to work. If we don't want to work with this customer, we can walk away. But if we want to work with this customer, then we learn what's going on with this customer. That's why I kind of put myself in that mode compared to complaining or something, is because I want money from the government, from the federal government. I want their contracts. I want the money for you, right? And so I need to figure out how do I sell to them, et cetera. Well, when the Trump administration started, there was just some massive impacts that were happening. And I'm not here to talk about whether it was good or bad, whether the process was good or bad. I've done all sorts of training about that early on. You can go watch in the beginning of the year. But main things that happened was there's a massive reduction in federal workforce. And the reason this was especially bad, right? It wasn't bad that the workforce shrunk from 4 million to 3.5 million or so. That wasn't the bad part. It was the way it was done, that so many of the people who exited the government were people we had built relationships with for years, or were in senior roles inside of, let's say, a program office, and the newer people might have stayed, somebody with 5 years. And I'm not knocking the experience levels, but there's a lot to be said when you're losing your senior people with 20 years, 10, 20 years of experience. And that's what a lot of the federal workforce happened. And that was a really big hit to us in the industry. If we had had relationships with these people who were all of a sudden out of the government, we're like, well, who do we talk to, right? Same thing happened in the acquisition shop. And I'm separating these people out a little bit, is that there was a reduction in the workforce in the acquisition side. These are the contracting officers, et cetera. There was a reduction in the workforce, but also a consolidation. So some agencies just lost like their entire acquisition shop. And you're trying to figure out, well, who do I talk to buy? This is something I actually have been teaching for years and years, that when we have an opportunity we're pursuing, we want to make sure we always understand who the acquisition office is, or what the acquisition office is, and which the program office is, because they're not always in the same agency. Sometimes an entire different agency is the funding and contracting side, and the program office, the people who are going to do the work, are on a different agency. And so in this particular case, a lot of that consolidation was heading down into GSA. Another one, cancellation of consulting contracts. This was huge impact on small businesses, especially those of us who were doing subcontracting under large billion-dollar firms, where they were losing their contracts or having them whittled down. And the government was coming in, and this was, DOGE really looking at people's contracts and just cutting them, fairly indiscriminately, but cutting them, which negatively impacted us. And then this is where it starts going into the next slide that I'll go into, but the elimination of DEI just across the board. The DEI overnight, became this bad word. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, it became this bad word. And so some of the first things that happened is all DEI contracts were canceled. And again, I'm not here to talk about whether it's right or wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm saying that was a truism. That happened. And when that started happening, it started impacting all sorts of activities that small businesses had. The contracts they had, contracts that expanded outside of DEI, but maybe referenced DEI, even contract or DEI shops. They were like just closing them down and moving people to different roles, or saying you're not needed, whatever it was. But that was a big deal, because that diversity, equity, and inclusion, now I'm about to give my opinion for 1 second, that is what small business programs are. The Women Program, Veteran Program, the Hub Zone Program, the 8A Program, the Small Business Program itself, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's just at different levels. It's not at, so there's all these kind of debates. Well, I saw that as a threat a long time ago, that's where we're going. And so I try to track on that, talk to my customers about that. And then I talk about even the language, right? Even having language in your capability statement or on your LinkedIn profile. People started saying, hey, leave it off, or you're going to, be rejected automatically. And that's kind of a sucky thing, right, to happen in the industry, where just the fact that you had equity on your capability statement of diversity, it might not even have meant diversity among people. It could have been diversity among options of solutions or something. And so that's where we started going. It was bad. And same thing with the FAR, et cetera. They started looking to the FAR. And now we're sliding into where I wanted to, come to you today about is that was one thing. And that was kind of in the campaign that was happening. There's, politicians running either side, again, I'm going to try to stay apolitical where I can, but, the politicians, they make all these promises. They're telling you what they're going to do when they come in. And so DEI was no surprise. That was the Trump administration's stated goal. So when they got in, they started doing it, right? The stated goal was DOGE, and they got in and did it. But never did I see them talking about, hey, we want to get rid of the small business advocates within agencies that advocate on on small business benefit into the federal buyers to say, hey, you should be looking at it. I'll give you a really quick example of why they're so important. I was talking to, let's leave it at the Army level. I was talking to somebody in the Army, senior contracting officer, 15 minimum years experience as a contracting officer at that level. And he had started using the SBIR program 1 year prior, right? 1 year earlier. And he started using the Small Business Innovation Research. Somebody had told him about it, and he was talking to me. He goes, before I started using that and working with that small business where they were technically competent, they were like nimble and flexible with our priorities. And when I said, well, could we do this or look at this way? Never was there all this delay. He goes, before that, I was always looking to the larges. I always thought, well, yeah, I'll work with smalls if I have to, but the larges, they're mature, they're solid. No, they're just bureaucratic. We smalls are nimble, agile. We can respond to the mission changes as fast as anybody who's in the field downstream, right? And so that was an area that I thought would never be attacked because these small business professionals within the federal agency and OSDBUs are at the highest level. They're necessary. They could do a better job for sure. I got all sorts of critique, but they're necessary. They are our advocates within the federal agency. They sit at the table with the head of contracting, with the head of a command or the head of a department and say, this is why we should be looking at small businesses. And really quickly, just to make sure everybody understands these terms, right? OSDBU is Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, right? How are we utilizing small and disadvantaged businesses? And then OSBP is Office of Small Business Program. That's OSDBU spelled in DOD. So the Department of Defense always has to be different from the civilian side. So it's the exact same thing, basically, the highest level advocates. The thing about these organizations, these offices, is they're primarily policy. They are not the people at the lowest level, which I'll talk about in a minute, right? They're not the ones closest to the opportunity you're trying to win. They're at the highest level. But we need people at that high level. I always tell people, don't knock on the OSDBU's doors. Leave them alone and let them figure out how to reach their goals, right? How to reach 3% or 5% or 23% or more within their agency spending with small businesses. And so I put a couple of examples here of ones that just got gutted, right? HHS, I think, was one of the most noisy, invisible ones where they just cut out the office. This is Health and Human Services, one of the largest spenders, certainly with small businesses out there. They just got rid of the OSDBU office. And it's just crazy that they did that. Right behind there, not long after that, DHS lost Darlene Bullock. And if you know her, she's like one of the biggest advocates for small business, not just across her Department of Homeland Security, but also across with other leaders within the federal government trying to advocate for small. And poof, she was pushed out the door, right? And don't read anything into that, but just gone, right? She retired. But it was that push that was happening in there. Department of Air Force just did this, I don't know, while I broke my back on the first. And so it happened since then where they gutted the office down to one person. They said, we're leaving one person in there. And that's staggering, right? That's pretty much what HHS did. We're down, one person's enough. One person is enough to advocate for 375,000 small businesses. That's not really true, is it? And then the bigger ones, the Small Business Administration. This is our chief advocate office, Small Business Administration, advocates on behalf of small businesses everywhere. There's 30 plus million of us, 300,000 plus of us in the GovCon space. And the Small Business Administration lost almost 3,000 people. They were overworked before, right? And again, I got critique on them and how they can improve their what they do, how they how they should be working with private industry to get things done faster and better. But they're a necessary organization, and we're cutting them by 2,700 or 3,000 people. And that's a huge deal. It's like, well, who's doing the work that they were doing? Or are we just saying the work that they were doing was unnecessary? I think you would agree with me that the work that they're doing is not unnecessary. We might want them to improve how they're doing it, but it's not unnecessary, right? And then the last one is the Minority Business Development Agency. If you're not familiar with these guys, they've been around forever, it seems like. But it was always like a quasi type agency. And then they just got promoted, I think last year, it might've been the year before or something, but they got promoted up into a full-fledged agency, I think under Department of Commerce. And then now they're gut. They're gutted, right? So they're gone. These things are real. These are happening, but it's not the end. I want you to understand it's not the end. And I don't want you to give up. I don't want you to sit there and get stuck on the complaining side, right? Complain for a beer or coffee and then move on, right? There are things you can do. And I'm going to talk about in the last 2 slides about what you can do. I definitely want to thank Voltron, who is my sponsor for today's live. I really appreciate it. Voltron, if you're not familiar with them, they'll help you accelerate proposals, win more work. You can visit them at Voltron.ai. These guys are on the leading side of the AI movement towards proposal writing. So when you think about trying to shrink things down from weeks, months and weeks down to hours, these guys are leaders out there. So check them out. And thank you to Voltron. Maybe do a little shout out for me, everybody in the chat. Just thanks, Voltron. Okay, let me give you tactical steps. I got about 10 minutes left, and my energy is pretty good, so we're rocking and rolling. The first thing I want you to understand is OSDBUs, right? We're like, oh my God, the OSDBUs are gone. Yes, but for the wrong reasons do we care. They need to be there, but they were never really helpful to us down at the at working level, right? They were never going to help us win an opportunity. They were going to help us try to win, get more visibility within the overall federal buyer side, set policies. But OSDBUs are at a higher level. So who's at the lower level? Who's closer to the work that you're trying to win? These are the people who were there. In no particular order, the first one is the Small Business Administration's district office. These district offices have people there that are working on your behalf as a small business. And if you reach out, they do training as well, free training that you can go in. You can talk to them. They have their own relationships within different agencies you can talk to them about. So district office has many people in there. 2 particular roles that are in there. One is the procurement center representatives. These guys, in my way of paraphrasing, what they do is they look at an opportunity before it goes full and open, and they say, could a small do it? Right? And the idea is they're kind of that gate to make sure things that small businesses could do don't go up to the higher level. This is something I'm going to be doing in 2026 is I really want to push all $100 million or less opportunities to small. If it's a $100 million opportunity, it absolutely can be done by a small. And so I want to be able to work on that. Well, these are the type of people who make that decision. The third bullet here, the SBA Business Opportunity Specialist. A lot of us think of these people like only for 8A small businesses. They have they run the 8A small business program at the local level. They do a lot of work with the 8A firms, but they work with any of us. And so if you build a relationship and talk with them, these people have a really good relationship with some of the contracting officers out there, et cetera. They probably do some of the most communication with KOs. The third group, and this goes into small business specialists at each one of the agencies. I said the OSDBUs are gone, but when you think about an OSDBU office, you're talking about maybe 10, 20 people at most. And generally, you have a whole bunch of small business professionals who are all around the Department of Energy or Homeland Security or Department of the Army. Like the Navy, for example, has 100 plus small business specialists, whatever they're called. I think I put it the last bullet there, second to last bullet, Deputy Director of Office of Small Business Programs. I think that's what Dave Waltz might put as his title. These 2 groups of people, though, they're still there. And there are hundreds and hundreds of them around the federal agencies. And so you need to find out, this is my recommendation when I talk about pursuing opportunities in your pipeline. Every pipeline should have a PCR and a small business specialist listed in your pipeline as a point of contact. Like, who are the interesting people for this opportunity? The PCR is at the SBA level, and you just go to sba.gov to find them. And then the small business specialist, you can find them in the directory that I put out, or you could just, you can go to Google, or you can go into the contracting officer on an opportunity and say, hey, who's the small business specialist? So I'm not wasting all your time. And then you come back and waste their time. And then the last group of people are the Apex Accelerators. These guys are partially funded by the DoD to a significant level. And they have relationships with local areas, like the Apex Accelerator out there in Oklahoma has a relationship with Tinker Air Force Base. If you're trying to get into Tinker, they can make that happen, right? They'll always want you to be ready to present to somebody. I don't want to introduce you to somebody only to have you embarrass yourself and maybe embarrass me, right? I'd rather work with you to prepare you and then make the introduction. That's what they do. That's what all these guys do, is they'll work with you, make sure you're ready. Some of you are absolutely ready, right? But if you're not ready, they'll give you some guidance before you go in. That way, when you get those meetings, you're going to have success. Okay, so that's the small business professionals. And then those people are basically away from the purchase, away from the opportunity. Now, if you come down to the federal buyer side, I have a huge amount of training, 50 plus trainings on who the federal buyers are, because it's not just one person. It's this journey that an opportunity goes through, or in the government, they call it a requirement, goes through this journey, and all these different people touch it at different points. And so one of the most obvious ones is the contracting officer. In the military, we call them KOs, and the civilian side, COs. That's only because CO stands for commanding officer in the military. But contracting officers, right? These are your key. If you've got an opportunity, then you should have that contracting officer's name in your pipeline, and you're tracking on them. And so you can build that relationship with them. Coming back to aligning it to the OSDBUs are gone, well, you need to convince the KO, really. You're not going to go to the OSDBU and convince them that a small business is great for an opportunity. You're just going to go to the OSDBU, and they're going to go, yeah, I love you and you love me, right? But it's when you come downstream to the KOs, that's when you start convincing people through data and evidence, your experience, past performance, your skill set, and your approach, et cetera. So the second one is second and third one work together with the contracting officer, the contracting specialist or contract officer specialist, whatever that title is, right? The contract specialist is a person who tends to do a lot of the legwork. They're like just before they're either a contracting officer or they're not a contracting officer on there, but they're very involved with your opportunity, the one you want to win. And so they're the ones you want to build that relationship with, get in and talk to, et cetera. I've got training this week about how to have second meetings with these people. Like if you get the first meeting, how do you have a second one, which starts the relationship? The third bullet, contracting officer representatives. These are cores are basically the people who are helping make sure the contract is being executed. They shouldn't be doing a lot more than that, just making sure it's being executed and that you're meeting your obligation. The government's kind of sticking to theirs. They report to the KO on that particular part, but often they're in the program office and they are the program manager sometimes, right? But the contracting officer representative is a great person to learn about on an opportunity to try to go after. Go find out who they are, build a relationship, even though some other companies got the contract. So they're a great one to reach out to, a great advocate on behalf of you. And if you reach out and find these ones that are already working with small businesses, you don't have to convince them that small businesses can do the work. They already know this. Now you just have to convince them you can do the work. And then last two ones that I put here, head of contracting and procurement. This is a big one, right? I always get in there and try to at least find out who these people are, follow them, see when they're doing industry days or APBIs, advanced planning briefs to industry. These events where they're trying to say, hey, here's all the stuff coming down, or here's our challenges and here's what we need from industry. You start finding out who these people are and you start following them. And then maybe you can start engaging them. You can't engage them as fast as you could like a contract specialist, but knowing who they are, these are the people that as you build relationships, these also can be advocates of your small business being able to support their mission, their need. And then last one is what I hope to be the most obvious to you is the program office personnel. When you think about all that a small business shop can do, all that an OSDBU shop or the OSBP can do, all of those guys basically are just trying to get you to the program office to get the program, because the program office will not be browbeat by the OSDBU to work with you or to work with any small. They have to be convinced you're going to help with the mission. So getting in there and building your relationships with them, showing them your expertise, through the content you share. I share this content with you. I'm sharing my expertise, right? You're judging me based on whatever I'm sharing. You can do similar type stuff. It doesn't have to be at this level, but similar type stuff with a program office to be able to get them to know who your company is and to be able to want to work with you. All right, so I always end on time. We got 1 minute left, I think. Here's just a couple of things I want you to remember. First off, it's okay to complain, but only complain for a few minutes, and then let's get to your plan. Let's put a plan in place to be proactive about our success in FY 2026. The second thing is small business pros, even though the top shop OSDBUs are being under attack, small business professionals are still here for you. So reach out, build those relationships, get them to introduce you to other people, and then engage with that actual buyer, in this case, the program office, right? Engage with the buyer so you build those long-term relationships and you will start seeing success out there that you want. Okay, running out of time. Just remember, sign up for tomorrow's training. If you want to increase your federal sales, I'd love to have you join me in my new SaaS It's called Call Plan AI. It's called Call Plan AI because it's focused on building relationships as the basis to all your success. But if you come in early right now, I give off 90% off for life for early subscribers because I'm still building it out. I've got good functionality, good tools, but I'm not like fully built out on all the features I want to have. And so I like building it with the subscribers who are in there. Come on in. I'd love to have you in there. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.